welcome to Games as Lit 101. As we all know, Nintendo has been making great games since the dawn of time. Well, okay, not really the dawn of time, or even the dawn of video games, but they're so ingrained into gaming consciousness now, it's hard to imagine existence without it. And when Nintendo makes a game, they make a good game. Their first-party entries into franchises like Mario and Zelda, all the way up to new IPs like Splatoon, are full of great ideas and fun gameplay. They've had some missteps here and there, but the best reason to own Nintendo's systems is still Nintendo's games, because they're just that good. But we don't talk about these games on this show very much, if only because Nintendo games, as great as they are, rarely have much in the way of narrative ambition, and that is what this show is about. That said, every now and again, one of them has branched out a little bit and told kind of an interesting tale. So today, we're going to celebrate what may very well be their best one yet, even though you may not even have heard about it. The Subspace Emissary. Been some other good Nintendo stories, like the fable-like tale of Super Paper Mario and Midna's story in Twilight Princess, and they probably have a bit more thematic heft than this one. Ultimately, this story mode within Super Smash Bros. Brawl exists as a fun adventure with all our favorite characters, much like the Smash Bros. Series itself always has, but it still stands out. This isn't a literary analysis, so while there will be minor spoilers, I won't be going into any major spoilers or in-depth analysis. I just wanted to talk a bit about a really fun story that's kind of gone under the radar, because it does something I've seen a good deal in animation, but not much in games. It has absolutely no dialogue. That's fairly common in older games, in a sense, but those older games also didn't really try telling a story beyond just a basic premise to contextualize the action. Double Dragon, for instance, establishes the story visually at the beginning, but that's all it is. Dude kidnaps a woman and you go get her. The Subspace Emissary has 25 major characters, each with their own motivations and personalities, with a story told over the course of nearly an hour of cutscenes, and watching the characters interact is just as much of a joy as fighting with them in the gameplay. The basic idea of the story is that while all these Nintendo characters are enjoying life and competition in the world of trophies, a mysterious attacker appears and starts reverting everyone back into trophy form and collecting them with the help of some of our favorite villains. And of course, one way or another, they all end up embroiled in this conflict. And the differing motivations are actually quite interesting. Some, like Diddy Kong, are trying to save someone close to them. Others, like Solid Snake and Samus, are infiltrating an enemy facility to find out what's going on. And King Dedede is basically just messing with the big bad's plans to start a trophy collection of his own, but might even have higher goals in mind. We have everything from the basic hero archetype to the selfish mercenary, and nearly every playable character in the game is here for their own unique reason. My personal favorite, by far, is Lucas. I haven't played the game he's from because Nintendo hates giving America good games, but this story starts with him being completely terrified of these strange new enemies until Ness comes along and saves him, valiantly fighting off the enemy until Wario comes along. After missing Ness a few times trying to turn him into a trophy, he targets Lucas instead, and Ness dives in the way to save him. And Lucas runs away. This obviously haunts him over the course of the game, and he begins to show more courage to make up for his cowardice in leaving his friend behind. And all of this is communicated completely without dialogue. I mean, the story's hardly as complex as Game of Thrones or something, but even so, it's notably more complex than I would expect a story to be, with no words to help explain what's going on. And really, it just works so well because these cutscenes are incredibly well done from a visual perspective. Look at the emotions and thoughts they can get across just with these visuals. When you see Ganondorf's involvement, check out this smile he gives. You just know he has something else up his sleeve. Or look at the Rob servants as they set off a subspace bomb. Actually kind of sad. Or Diddy Kong's enthusiasm versus Fox's mercenary attitude. And I won't spoil this for you here, but the scene where Rob himself first makes his appearance is actually quite sad. And it helps too that the animation, much like the gameplay, is just so energetic and spirited. This thing is just straight up awesome. All this comes together to form a fairly simple message, but also quite a clear one. Unity and cooperation will save the day. It's kind of akin to the moral at the end of a children's television show or something, and really that's kind of what this whole thing reminds me of, a really awesome kid's story about everyone overcoming their differences and saving the world together. It even ends by translating the Latin lyrics of the game's main theme, written by that god among composers Nobuo Uematsu, into English, and the song kind of puts the whole story into perspective, not just as a story of friends fighting alongside each other, but of heroes, of legends, the Nintendo characters that we all know and love, fighting alongside one another in glorious battle for the fate of the world. It's actually kind of neat. It's all about how there's this legendary hero that you know about and that you respect and even fear, and they're fighting alongside you now, as are even your former enemies, and all of you are stronger and brighter for that companionship. I loved the song in the first place, but I like it a lot more now that I know what it's about, and it's perfectly thematically appropriate for the story of the Subspace Emissary. As I said, a few other Nintendo games have stories of similar quality and probably a bit more depth, but this one is most likely my favorite out of all of them just because of how enjoyable and expressive and complex it can be for being such a simple, exciting tale with no dialogue at all. It's actually very impressive, and the decision not to include a similar story mode in the new Smash Bros. Game still kind of makes me sad. So if you want a fun Nintendo story, or for that matter, a really enjoyable video game story that you can play through with a kid, I definitely recommend checking out the Subspace Emissary mode in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The use of nonverbal storytelling is really impressive, and the resulting story is one that works far better than I'd ever have expected from a Smash Bros. Game. So if you can think of any Nintendo games that you think trump this one in terms of its story, by all means talk about it in the comments. And don't forget to check out Games as Literature on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. You know where the links are. Next week, we're going to be talking about the, quite frankly, kind of absurd amount of importance that we place on the length of a video game, and why that might not actually be a very good thing to do. So until then, class dismissed.